Okay, welcome back. So today we're going to be looking at creating a new project. We're going to be working through this so that you can develop some of your technical skills that you should have built up during those first 4 basic videos that we've already had a look at. So hopefully you've made your beautiful cube-shaped thing with the bits sticking out of it and managed to make something into it. So now we're going to make a particular engineering component. In this case we're going to be making a flange, and if you're not sure how to spell that, it's at the top of the screen. And any jokes that you feel like making, you can do that in your own time. Anyway, so we're going to be making this. Now the idea of this would be a metal plate that would attach to something and potentially have a tube sticking out of it, so that we could potentially stick something like a rubber hose on it, something like that. So normally it'd be a component that would join to either another component, or it would join to a separate mechanical device. Okay, so this is what we're going to be trying to make, and this is going to lead you through a few more tools that you might find useful when you start creating your own projects. Okay, so let's go ahead and start a sketch, and we're going to be doing this on the top plane. So I'm going to select that and press N to normalize. Then I'm going to use my center point circle, and we're going to be trying to create a circle that's 120 millimeters in diameter. So we're going to make that, go ahead and dimension it by pressing D on the keyboard and pulling away. By the way, if I'm going too quickly at any point, feel free to sort of rewind the video or go back to any particular points that you wanted to go over again. But I'm just going to buzz through this because we've gone through fairly slowly on the other ones. And obviously the benefit of the videos is that you can go back to whatever stage you want to, or pause it when you need to catch up. So right, anyway, so we've got our initial circular base plate that's going to be made of metal potentially, and the idea is that we're going to create a metal base plate with a tube sticking out of it, something that we could potentially join something onto later on if we needed to. Now then, we need to continue in this sketch, and we're going to just create a load of bolt holes. We're going to do that standard size, and standard components come in certain sizes, and especially in terms of engineering, so you might come across things such as M8 or M6 or M4. These are all standard sizes for standard components. So a bolt, a nut, something like that, that would always come in an M8 or an M4 or an M6, or I know it all sounds like I'm talking about motorways, but actually yeah, they are standard sizes for you to have a look at. Anyway, so enough waffle, let's go and create that. So we're going to use our center point circle again. I'm going to go up this vertical line here. You might be able to see a little dashed line that's happening behind me, and that little symbol tells me that I'm kind of sticking on that line. So I'm just going to click to start and start dragging that out. Now it's an M8, so it should be 8 millimeters. So we're going to dimension that with the D key, drag that over and call that 8 millimeters. Okay, now we want to try and create a set size between the middle of that circle and the middle of the plate. So we're going to stick with the dimensioning tool. We're going to select the midpoint of the circle and the central point, the origin of that initial base plate, and set that to 50 millimeters as a distance. So you can see that's just moved that shape away. Now I want to create a load more of these all around the outside, because if it was something like this in the real world, we would have a lot of bolts holding it in place. So I'm going to be sort of creating a whole bunch of different sized circles around the outside of the circumference here, and we're going to be using this tool up at the top here. So this is an array tool, and there's lots of different types of arrays. This particular first one is a linear pattern, as it conveniently came up with then. So if you were drawing something and you wanted something to go in a straight line, a linear array would be a useful thing for you to use, but in this case we're going to be doing it in a circular pattern. Okay, so we're going to select the circular pattern, we're going to select the thing that we want to array, and the computer is going to do a bit of work for us. It's going to find the center. In this case it's using the origin, and it's created 3 instances, and you can tell that because it's just said 3x at the top. So if we go ahead and open that up, now we would in real life need more than 3 versions, so I think we'd be reasonable to say that we're going to use 8. Okay, so we're just going to change that, and it's going to make 8 bolt holes all around the outside, and that's showing that for you already. Okay, so that's our sketch done, so we can go ahead and accept that. Okay, so we've got a standard base plate like that. we need to extrude this now. So I'm going to go into my isometric view. I always like to when I want to see this coming out. So we're going to get the extrude tool, select the middle part of the drawing we've just done, and elevate that. Now that's a bit thick at the moment, so we're going to just make that a wee bit smaller. We're going to make that 10 millimeters in depth. Okay, so that's that bit done. Now, for the next bit, what we need to do is we need to bore a hole through the center. Now, obviously, I'm doing this in a way that you might actually make it in real life, whereas obviously I could have drawn the circle in the initial sketch and elevated that, and that would have been a way of doing it, but I'm going to show you some different ways of doing similar things so that you know a few different options. So for instance, if you'd forgotten to do that hole, at least there's a way that you can do that again. Anyway, so we need to go ahead and make another sketch, because at the moment we don't have anything in the center here. That's the original origin, but that's on the bottom layer down here. I haven't got anything on this top layer showing me where the middle is. You can probably see where the middle is there, but it's not actually grabbing anything. So we're going to get a sketch. We're going to do that on the face of the shape that we've already made, and we're going to put in a control point. This is a point here. So if we click on that, if we run down these lines, it will try and decide what we're going to do for us. So it's liking that we're running down a line, and when we get to the middle, it makes us a little square. So we're just going to click on that. That gives us our control point, which is exactly what we need for the next step. Okay, so we're going to accept that one, and then I'm going to introduce you to this tool at the top here. So this is a hole tool. Its sole purpose is to make a hole through the middle of something. So we're going to select that, and it's got a few different versions, and I'll show you those in just a second. So again, as I said before, we're using some standard engineering sizes. So in this case, we're going to try and create a 22 millimeter tube, which would be 22 millimeters on the outside, and normally have a wall thickness of between 1.5 millimeters and 2. So we're going to go ahead and use a 2 millimeter just because it looks a bit better on this. Which means that our initial hole that goes all the way through our part is going to need to be 18 millimeters. Well, that's already selected because I was doing something with it earlier. So I'm going to come across here, and it's saying sketch points to place hole, and now this is a point, so I'm going to click on that, and straight away you can see it's bored a hole straight through the middle for us. That's nice and easy. A very simple tool to be using, especially on a solid item. Now we could choose a bunch of other different types of hole. So we could use simple, or we could go for counter bore. Counter bore basically means it's got this little neck just inside it, so this outside hole is slightly bigger than the one we've actually bored through. So at this point it's saying it's 25 millimeters, and there's a 5 millimeter lip. That's not something we need at the moment. So I could also show you the countersink. Now all this has done is just put a little chamfer on the edge. So if you're going to put a machine bolt or something in there, then that will be appropriate for that sort of thing. But at the moment we just need a simple. So we're going to go through with that. So that's just a standard hole. Okay. Right, so that's a good start for us. Now then, we could use that control point that we just made to help us draw by using some old school kind of fairly standard drawing things. Now I'm just going to have a look from the top because we need to do another sketch. So we're going to come over and select the sketch, and again it's the face of this particular drawing that we're trying to achieve here. Now what I'm going to try and do is just put a second circle around this one just to give us a wall thickness so that we could extrude our tube away from the body of the faceplate. Now there's a few things that we could do here. So for instance, if I wanted to zoom in on a particular part, now for those of you that don't have a mouse, that are using a laptop and a mouse pad, I'm just going to show you the zoom tool. So if you are using a mouse, then it's just scrolling the rollerball forward and back if you've got one. But if you don't, then the controls are over here. So these are the camera and render options. So if we click on here, so if I had something selected, I could click zoom to selection. Whoa. Yeah, so that's done that for us. Okay, so that's one thing that we could do. If I click off that and just deselect that, now I'm interested in this middle bit, but I don't want to get too close, so I'm going to custom decide how big I want this to be in the screen. So I'm going to click on zoom to window. It's a little magnifying glass, and if you click and hold with your left key, left mouse button, we can drag a selection over that, and it will make that the main point of what we're doing. Okay, so the tool that I'm particularly looking to use this time, so we could, as I say, we could use our standard center point circle, but in this instance we're going to try out this tool up here. So this is the offset tool, and again it's got a little drop down. You can do an offset or you can do a slot. We're going to stick with the offset, and we need to select the circle that we want, and it's telling us that that's standard 5mm. So if I just click on that value, that will allow me to edit it. So we want to make that a 2mm wall thickness, so 2, and then hit return, and now we've got this size in here. So that's all good, and that's exactly what we were looking for at this point, so hopefully you're keeping up. Okay, now then, if I want to zoom back out, so don't forget we've got our standard navigation at the top here. If I wanted to zoom out to the full view, I'm just going to click on this top view here, and it's going to zoom us out like so. Okay, so nice and easy, we're in a reasonable place. So we've got all our holes already bored through. We're going to just raise this pipe up, and I always like to look at this in 3 dimensions just because it sort of feels a bit more natural to me. So I'm going to accept the sketch because that's a good size. Going to go ahead and extrude that, so we've hit our extrude function, so that's our second extrude, and make sure that both circles are highlighted, not just the middle one. So I want to highlight both of those, so I'm just pointing in the middle. Click once, and that's going to extrude that for us, and we don't want it to be 25mm, we'd quite like it to be 30, so I'm just going to key in 30 and hit return, and there you go. So that's our standard piece. Okay, so it's a bit simplified, it's going okay, there's no major problems there. But we still have a little bit more work to do. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make it look a little bit more grown up. So I'm going to chamfer the edge, so using one of the tools we've used before in the previous tutorials, and I'm just going to make that a 1mm chamfer and select just this outside line. Okay, so just a small one there. Now in real life usually this tube would be welded on, so you normally wouldn't have this very crisp edge here. So we're going to put a fillet onto that one, and we're going to make the fillet 3mm over here, and we're just going to select this bottom line for it to revolve around, and that's looking a lot more like it now. Okay, now if this was a real thing and I was going to try and put a tube onto this like a rubber hose, there'd be absolutely nothing to stop it from sliding straight back off again. So we just need to do something about that, and there is a standard thing that typically you would find on most parts. So we're going to go ahead and use the front view and click N to normalize. Okay, so we should be up to that point. And what we want to do is just draw a little profile, a little shape on this edge here that's going to allow us to take that all the way around the circumference of that tube. Okay, so we're going to get our zoom to window, and all I'm looking at here is quite a small window just around that corner because I want to get in quite nice and tight. So we need to do another sketch now. I've already got our front face selected as the plane that we're working on, so this should be halfway through the tube at the moment, and we're just going to draw a little profile of a sort of a rounded lip that's going to go around the top. So I'm going to start off with my line tool, get as close to that corner as I possibly can, and drag down. Now I want this to be about 3mm, so I'm going to make that around that and hit the D key and dimension that off. So that's going to be 3mm. Now if we want a curve of 3mm, so that's obviously the length of 3mm, but the curve is not going to be that, because the curve we're going to make using a radius. So we need to use this 3-point curve here. Okay, I'm going to join it on the bottom first. The reason being is because if I join it on the top, it's going to drag it down a little bit. I want it to stay put at the top, so I'm going to make that my second point. So click twice and then start to drag out, and it doesn't really matter how big you make it because we're going to dimension it anyway, like we usually do. And we're going to, so remember this is a radius, so if we want a diameter of 3mm, we need a radius, excuse the car with the poor exhaust, a radius of 1.5mm. So we're going to key in that, and that's a nice regular arc now. Okay, so that's that drawing done for us, and that's sitting quite nicely on the edge. It's up to the top, and it's sitting flat on the side, so that's all good as far as we're concerned. So close that sketch by pressing OK, and then we need to come out again. Okay, you can barely see it, but it is just there. If you get in there, it can highlight different parts of it. Now then, we're going to go back, we're going to use this rotate tool over here, and so that's going to ask us what we want to rotate. So first things first, if we hover over the part we just drew, okay, so that's that part that we want, and then below it is in red, it's got this revolve axis, so we just need to click on that, and then we're going to come down here as the outside line that we're looking for. Okay, not the inside, the outside. Okay, so we're going to click on that, and the computer will render that for us nicely, and click OK to accept it. So again, if I right click, I can orbit around and have a damn good look at it, and that looks like something that would actually work out quite nicely. Okay, so that lip just there is it would prevent anything from just sliding straight back off it. So it's a very simple thing that we've created, but also quite an important thing that we do have a go at these things and actually sort of try and mimic some of the real world stuff. So we're just going to have a look at that. So yeah, that's looking quite good for us. So generally that is quite a nice looking thing. It's a very simple thing to draw, but it is using quite a number of more complicated skills. So hopefully that's been a useful first exercise for you guys to have a go at. So that's something that you can do, and any problems, please do give me a shout. Let me know if there's anything that isn't explained very well, but remember, you can always go back over the video as you see fit. So thanks for joining us, and hopefully give that a go.